We're back, guys. We are back. What is it, Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? Happy Tuesday. We are here. Hit the like button as you are coming in. I'm super delighted to bring back a friend of the channel. Today, we're going to talk to Doug Weinstein about some legal happenings, right? We're going to talk a little bit about what happened last week because we have our YSL folks, and I do want to focus on that a tad bit because I don't think we've debriefed after I read that document with you guys. Seti Nash was here. He pulled up and we talked about it a bit. And I really focused on language. We're going to bring you guys up to speed on the order from that whole debacle last week. And then we're lightly going to talk about Karen Reed. Now, here's the update for all my Karen Reed folks. As of today, we have 12 jury members. We were stuck on 10 for the past few days. Yesterday, there was no movement. We stayed at 10. Friday, there was no movement, stayed at 10. I thought we were actually going to start the trial this week, but it appears that we have a start date, guys. That's going to be 1 week from today on Tuesday. So we're going to be here bright and early, opening statements. We're going to watch it. It's going to be a pretty long upcoming few weeks, but I'm so excited for us to review another trial together. And you guys know my style. I really like to educate you as we go. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a lot, but I'm really excited to jump into it. So that being said, you guys know how to support the channel. You can do it with a like, a comment, engage in the chat. We don't lock anybody out over here. If you're looking for other ways to support the channel, you can find that in the banner below. Without further delay, let's bring up the man of the hour. Hi, Doug. How are you?
Hey, great. How are you, AV? Always good to be back on.
Yes, of course, of course. And chat, you guys know how we do it. You got to give Doug a warm welcome in the chat. Please do it. Type Doug in the chat. We love him over here. So let's give him a warm welcome as we jump into it. But Doug, how have you been?
Oh, I've been doing great. I've been doing great. I think we haven't talked since I left and went out on my own. So,
Yes, I had no
yeah,
idea. We were just kind of briefly chatting in the back, guys, but Doug has his own practice now. Tell us more
yeah,
about it.
yeah. Well, I'm renting some space from Bruce Harvey down in his building that he and his wife own in downtown Atlanta. So,
Sweet.
I'm getting that built out. Yeah. So Bruce Harvey and Nicole Westmoreland are down there. So
Hmm.
it's great that I get to see them. And and I'll be working a little bit more with them than I have in the past. So
That's
that's a great
great.
opportunity for me to learn from the best.
Nice. And are we still staying in the criminal law space? Or are you expanding the practice to other
You know,
categories?
no, I still have some civil litigation that I've kind of
Okay.
had on the side for a while, and I'm still doing that, but I would say that I am 95% criminal right now, and I'm going to
Okay.
keep it like that, 90+% criminal.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
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 towards the end, I'm going to, we'll have the mods drop the link to your law firm website. We do
great.
have a lot of people in the Atlanta area that are following along. So if they ever need you, they know where to find you. So I'm
I
super
hope
pumped
nobody
about that.
needs me. I hope nobody needs me.
Exactly, exactly. Because
Yeah,
it's interesting as a content creator how many emails like I get because
yeah.
I chose not to practice. Like I'm just going to do legal law too, moving forward,
There
right?
you go. Yeah.
We get inquiries all the time, and we really do try to push people in the right direction, make recommendations on some good attorneys in their area. So you're at the top of the list for Atlanta for us.
Well, thank you. That's very kind
Yeah.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start with last week. This, I honestly was going to take a day off, and then Twitter was like on fire and ablaze because there was a filing at just about 8 p.m. at night. And you remember that filing, right? It came from the
I
state.
Yeah, yeah, I vaguely remember it. It was quite a 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah, it was a crazy 24 hours. And for those that are not familiar, we're talking about young Doug, right? You guys all followed this large RICO case. Doug was one of the attorneys in that case and represented Yak Gotti. This was all over a tweet. And it's been such a crazy week. What exactly was the wording of the tweet?
Well, of course, Fulton County, being Fulton County or the DA's office, they
Mhm.
did not accurately say what was in the tweet. But what was in the tweet was Jeffrey Williams saying something to the effect of, and this is pretty close to his words, biggest liar in the DA's office, with
Hmm.
a picture of Viverito there. I
Right.
don't believe he actually named her, but it was her picture, and just
Hmm.
said biggest liar in the DA's office. And in response to that, um, Adam Abate and Simone Hilton and Fonnie Willis filed a motion to revoke his probation, saying that that tweet was a violation of one of his conditions. And by the way, they filed that in like a 5-page total piece of
Yes.
crap motion.
Yep. I'm glad you said it.
Oh, it's a piece of crap. Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We read it word for word. And, I really try to focus on the abrasive language that was included in it. And, it just reminded me of all of last year. But
yeah,
some of the language was just so strong and definitive and did not include to, in Brian's point when he, filed a counter to that argument was
yeah,
show us where there's a violation.
yeah.
Show us
They,
where.
yeah, they never said the provision that he violated.
Hmm.
They cited to absolutely zero. I mean, I eviscerated them when I was going over it. They cited to no case law to support their positions.
That's right.
um, where you had like a sentence that typically you would expect a string cite afterwards. In other
Yep.
words, here's a list of 4 or 5 cases, because I think they
Hmm.
had some line about courts in Georgia have consistently blah, 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 blah. And
Yep.
I'm like, oh, well, here comes a string cite. And there's nothing, not a
No,
single
not at
case,
all.
because they had no case law to support their position.
Hmm.
And I remain disappointed that Adam Abate and Simone Hilton, who I have had respect for, would put their name on that.
Yeah, it's tough, and kind of looking at all the exhibits that they put in towards the end, and looking at the timestamps, we were really focusing on someone is monitoring this account and
Sure.
taking screenshots, and I think they're almost kind of waiting for something to happen. They're waiting for the other shoe
Well,
to drop and pounce. You know?
yeah, it's clear that that office, the Fulton County DA's office, is monitoring everything that Jeffrey Williams does, and that
Hmm.
people there likely have marching orders that if he gets close to the line, forget over the line, if he gets close to the line, you're going to move to revoke.
Yeah.
So when his album drops this month, his next album drops this month, I'm sure that if you go over to the third floor, the Fulton County, courthouse, you'll hear some pretty hard beats coming through the door there, because I think they're gonna have like half a dozen guys trying to decode and listen to Jeffrey Williams' unique style, Young Thug's unique style,
Right.
playing over and over again, writing all those lyrics down. And even if he doesn't come close to the line, I would expect them to twist his words to come up with another effort to revoke his probation,
Yeah.
which is sad.
Exactly.
Which is sad.
It really is just because, like, there's a thin line, and a lot of people were on, the line of freedom of speech and expression and opinion, right?
Yeah.
Because even with his job, so to speak, he's still a public figure. He still needs to use social media as a tool, right?
Right.
And that does come with opinions at times. But, can you control the fact that in Twitter's crazy? Like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
experiencing that.
Yeah.
That is the strangest platform that I've
Yeah.
experienced so far. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, can you control what people say in addition to what you have opined on?
Right. And
Right?
what they tried to do, which I'm sure your folks know because they've been paying
Hmm.
attention, is they allege that what third parties did, that he being Jeffrey, has
Yep.
absolutely no control over, that what
Hmm.
they said is his responsibility. And
Right.
on a broadcast medium like Twitter, which is really a true broadcast medium, when you
Right.
say something out there, unless you've specifically blocked someone, they can view it. And
Yes.
you don't have control over what those people are going to say. He
Hmm.
didn't Anyway, he did nothing to amplify the horrific things that were said.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, he went out and said, some of these comments are not appropriate. I do not join these comments, because some of the comments were abhorrent. You shouldn't
Yeah.
threaten people. You shouldn't threaten their parents. That's terrible. But that's
Right.
not Jeffrey Williams' responsibility. Um, it was just an offensive filing. And I'm not a free speech absolutist. There are
Hmm.
things that cross the line and don't fall under protected speech,
Yeah.
but this was not the case. This
Yeah.
was ridiculous, and I think they did themselves a disservice because they, being the DA's office, it further eroded their already weak credibility in front of
That
Judge
was not
Whittaker.
good. That was
Right?
not good at all. And it's like,
Yeah.
I do have like a communications background as well, just, spending some time in corporate America. And I was
Yeah.
just really commenting on the speed, on how fast this stuff was coming out.
Yeah.
It's just like they were just ready to pounce. But even with Atlanta PD, I think this is a separate matter. But it's like they were reporting on things so quickly. And I've never seen that before. I'm also looking at it like, okay, there are other crimes that are happening, and the fact that you guys are able to do this so quickly. What
Yeah.
about the sluggish way that we're handling other situations? Like when I lived in Atlanta, like my home got broken into in Buckhead. I'm
Mhm.
still waiting for the police report. And that was a
Yeah.
year ago,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it did
Well,
not help public confidence.
I know. And think about those resources that are dedicated to monitoring Jeffrey Williams' every social media move instead of doing
Wow.
other things that could be more productive in keeping the citizens of Fulton County safe.
Exactly.
Um, so many things were wrong with that. And then, of course, Brian did an amazing job instantly responding,
Exactly.
and he got to the
Yeah.
heart of the matter. He had a nice little mic drop there in his last sentence. Do you
That's right.
recall the last sentence? I really
I don't
enjoyed it.
recall it off the top of my head, but for those that are catching up, let us know what it said.
It was just, Brian can never be harsh or rude or anything. Like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I would have paid money to be able to respond to that motion of the states because I wouldn't have been nearly as kind as Brian was. But I think
Yeah.
he ended with basically, look, Judge, you can rule on the papers here. You don't need to have a
Hmm.
hearing. But if you do have a hearing, Mr. Williams will come prepared.
Ah, that's right. I
Yeah,
do remember that. That's right. He
yeah,
did end it in that way.
he
And
did.
it's what a contrast too, because it's like, there's the language that was used in the states motion. Like I don't see this in other states. I don't see other district attorneys reminding everyone that they were elected. Like that bugs me so much when I read it. I'm like, why is that word elected always here? So that was interesting. But the fact that they wanted either reimbursement or payment for beefing up security because they had other officers or whatever the case may be. I don't know if they were trying to make it seem like it was because of the proximate cause or that Jeffrey Williams was the cause of them having to do that. That's, to your point, resources.
Yeah, yeah. And Jeffrey Williams, none of these guys that were on trial in this case, they're
Mm-hmm.
not the reason. And by the way, some of these district attorneys, including Fonnie Willis, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Love, maybe some of the others, I know there have been threats against
Yes.
them, and that's
Yes.
not right. That's
Right.
that's not. Public officials should be allowed to do their job without
Mm-hmm.
being threatened.
Right.
So that's not right. But again, that wasn't Jeffrey Williams' fault. He's not responsible for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe if they would have, I don't want to put the blame back on them because there is no call for it, um, but it shouldn't happen, and it's not Jeffrey Williams' fault. And you don't throw
Mm-hmm.
the man in prison for 15 plus years because of what
Yeah.
someone else did.
Yeah. Or even escalating it, because now we're in cybercrime territory, but with other actors, right?
Right.
And that because it's the internet. I mean, there are other resources that you can use. Get the FBI involved. Like there are other ways to get other agencies to help out with things like this. And so that's the other observation I had. And I was just kind of confused on why we were using state resources where maybe some federal resources could help with something like this.
Yeah, I don't think the feds want to get anywhere near this case.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yep.
know,
I think they're done.
the feds go for cases where they can absolutely nail people and
Yep.
you know have a 99.9% success rate chance
Yes.
because of all the evidence. They're not going
Right.
to I don't think they're going to touch these YSL
Hmm.
folks, and rightfully so. It's a
Right.
waste of time and resources.
Exactly. Exactly. So, in that 24 hours, we had the initial state motion. The next morning, Brian filed his argument, and then Judge Whitaker, very swiftly, a few hours later, had a ruling.
She
And
did.
yeah, yeah, it
She
was
did like a
amazing.
3 or 4 sentence ruling, which
Hmm.
was just straight to it. Now, by the way, I'm terrible at predicting the future because I was sure Judge Whitaker was going to have a hearing
Hmm.
for the sole purpose of forcing the DA's office to stand up and try to argue these things in front of her.
Yeah.
And so, because she has an appellate background, I kind of expected her to immediately launch into questioning a lot of what they were saying in their motion.
Mm. Okay.
Um, so I really thought for that reason alone she would do it. But in some way, it's just as dismissive to say, "Yeah, I don't even need a hearing. We can dismiss this on the papers."
Yes.
Um, I
Yes.
wasn't wild about the footnote that she dropped.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that, like the footnote saying, maybe he should consider not weighing in or something along those lines.
Yeah, I, 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 I think she meant that in the best way. Like,
Mhm.
here is some free motherly advice.
Here's a suggestion.
Maybe you don't want to poke the bear.
Right.
Um, and so I think she was trying to be helpful with that. I would have expected her to say that in an actual hearing as well, because if you
Hmm.
recall during sentencing, she lightly admonished, suggested, I don't know what the right words were, but she's not
Hmm.
wild about Jeffrey's lyrics.
Yep.
And she had some things to say about that. I mean, I don't like the lyrics either, but I'm
Hmm.
not going to get involved in silencing people's right of free expression. And I don't
Right.
think the bench should get involved in that. But the footnote, I think she was just trying to give some nice advice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's better. I think that was a better use of resources instead of calling a hearing, hauling everybody into court, all of those things. It's just like, okay, here's a suggestion and we'll go from there. Because I did notice in the state's motion on the very last page, they had like a snapshot. It was not the entire conversation, but they
Mhm.
did like take a snapshot of what Judge Whitaker herself mentioned to Jeffrey. And
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, now this is just being petty,
Yeah, yeah, I
like
know.
show us the entirety like of the
Right,
conversation. That would have been helpful, but it's just like,
right.
Judge, this is what you said.
Yeah.
So it was crazy.
So it may have been wish casting on my part to be hoping for that hearing, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been there. I
Yeah,
would.
I bet. I bet. And, like so many of us get a lot of intel from the attorneys that are directly involved. But at the same time, it's, being there would have been interesting to see how that would have, if it was going to unfold. Because if she had a similar thought process, like it probably would have been like a 10-minute hearing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I was hoping for a little more. So I actually saw Mr. Abate today in court.
Oh,
He
did you?
he successfully opposed me on a bond motion that I had filed. So
Really? Okay. I mean, it
so
happens. It
it
happens.
happens. It happens.
From time to time, it happens, but it's
It,
it's always good to see familiar faces.
it is, and we get
Mhm.
along just fine.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Speaking of which, this kind of brought up a thought because I know that some of the remaining defendants, there are about 3 or 4 of them. There's a trial, but that's not really happening to the summer. Is that right?
There's 3 of them that are left.
3. Okay.
And the trial right now is supposed to begin in June. It
Okay.
originally was supposed to begin in February.
Hmm.
Some of the lawyers had, at least one of the lawyers had an issue with a personal issue that delayed things.
Hmm.
He also needed additional resources to go through the volume of discovery. So Judge Whitaker, however, got him additional resources and gave him some time. So now, yeah, they're scheduled for June.
Hmm.
Um, and I believe, let's see it's Mr. Eppinger, I
Yep.
believe it's in there.
Hmm.
Um, One of the people accused of the unaliving of Donovan Thomas is in there.
Right. Right.
I'm forgetting the name at the moment,
Hmm.
but I've spoken to his attorney. So I think there's 3 left. So
Okay.
those 3 will, assuming all 3 are still there. I think the state's being a little unreasonable in their plea offers, but we'll see. But that should start in early June, and that trial will not take 2 years. That trial,
Yeah.
Judge
Ooh.
Whitaker's announced, will be over in less
Yes.
than 90 days from start to finish.
That's great. Just because, again, when we're thinking about resources, dragging something out,
Yeah,
the jury members that were involved in 1.0, YSL 1.0, I mean,
yeah,
that was a long haul.
I
It
know, but they're
certainly
planning
was.
on bringing some of these same witnesses back, and it'll just be fascinating to see how that goes for them.
Interesting. I did not know that. So the same witnesses. That's really going to be an interesting one. So that's coming this summer. But
Yep.
speaking of 1.0, I know
Yeah.
that you had a very proud moment with your client last year, and you know he successfully did not take a plea deal,
Right.
but he ended up having a not guilty verdict, which was fantastic. You and I talked about that, I think, the week that it happened. But
Right.
how is Yakati doing? And tell us a little bit more about his status, because it's my
Sure.
understanding he's still incarcerated, right?
He is. He is
Wow,
still incarcerated. He's in the Fulton County jail system. He is not at the infamous Rice Street.
good.
He's at another
Yeah.
location down in Union City, which is better, but still not good.
Hmm.
Um, and he's been incarcerated since his not guilty verdict.
Yeah.
I saw
Wow.
him last. Now, just so people know if they're not aware,
Hmm.
he's charged with two different incidents. One involving some contraband that they allegedly found in his cell. And I believe
Hmm.
it's a cell phone and some AirPods. And the other is basically a fight he had in the jail.
Wow.
So, which happens. Like if you're locked
Hmm.
up at Rice Street and you're accused of gang activity, it's pretty hard to not be involved in a fight. So, um, those are the two incidents that he's dealing with. One is before Judge Whitaker, the other's in front of Judge McBurney. Now,
Hmm.
I saw him last Friday. I went to go visit him. He was looking great. He was
Good.
in far better spirits than I. He was in great spirits, actually.
Yeah.
I really think, and by the way, this is not based on any inside knowledge, okay?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
really think this thing is coming to a resolution.
Good.
Hopefully, I'm hoping he's. Oh, wait, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, I am hope because my car just stopped. I'm
No, you're
hoping.
fine.
I'm hoping that he is going to be out at least on bond, if not this all resolved this month. He has a
Hmm.
hearing before Judge Whitaker tomorrow morning.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Bruce Harvey and Nicole Westmoreland will be representing him there.
Hmm.
Um, the hearing is supposed to start at 10 in the morning. I believe it may actually begin before that. So I'm going to get to court early. I'm going to be in the gallery, just a member of the public.
Yep.
But unless they stop me, I will be live tweeting what is going on in the course of the hearing. So
Awesome.
if you can manage to find me on Twitter, and God knows what my Twitter handle is, because
Yes, we'll
I,
find
de-
you.
I deleted my old Twitter in a liberal hissy fit at some point. And
Ah.
and but if you can find me, I will be live tweeting what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah, if any
hoping
of
that
the
we get
mods
some.
are hanging around, if you guys could drop the link to Doug's Twitter in the chat, and then we'll include it in the description. So
If you can, yeah,
if anybody's watching on replay, you'll find it. We'll make sure you get there.
if you can find my totally random Twitter handle these days. Um, but yeah, and so I'm not sure right now whether Judge Whitaker is only handling the contraband issue that's in front of her, or
Hmm.
she's going to work on a like some type of global issue between what's with her and McBurney. But obviously, we'll know a lot more after tomorrow. And
Right.
I haven't talked to Bruce Harvey or Nicole Westmoreland about exactly what's going on there.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm hoping for something soon.
Yeah, that would be great. Just because it's been almost 5 months. So it's been some time since he's, had this not guilty verdict. And that's the thing. Like it would be great if he would be free and with his family.
Right?
Hmm.
Exactly. And he deserves to be there. I mean, really, in most, and I don't want to say most of other states, but in a lot of other states
Hmm.
with that not guilty verdict, even if he picked up some of these small things in the jail, they'd let him walk out. So
Yeah.
um, I'm disappointed he's still locked up. I should have been able to walk out with him on those steps and celebrate
Hmm.
with his mom. But I
Hmm.
will tell you, the day that he does walk out, unless I have to be in court somewhere, I will be there
That's
to
awesome. I'm so
celebrate with
happy
him.
you guys have had like such a great relationship, because like some people don't have that type of relationship with their attorneys. But you guys have gone through so much together, especially with that first trial, day in and day out. And
Yeah.
I remember like the head injury he received like closer to the end. He's
Yeah.
been through so much.
He has been.
Hmm.
Everyone involved in that trial has been through a lot. Not
Yeah.
just the defendants, but some of these witnesses that they dragged in there and put through
Oh
all of
my
this.
goodness, the
And
911
then
lady. She was
and
in there all the time.
and then also, I do feel for Donovan Thomas's family
Yeah.
having gone through this, and
Hmm.
them being the DA's office and law enforcement not really going after the right people.
Right.
So everyone involved in this has been through a lot, but I
Yeah.
think it's going to wrap up soon. YSL 2 won't take long, and then people can
Hmm.
move on with their lives.
Right. There we go. There we
Yeah,
go. So that's it's nice that we got an update on Yak Gotti and how he's doing. I do want to shift our focus to Karen Reed though.
yeah,
Because this case is, I'm up in Boston temporarily, but it is just I was done. And you as well as I know, like last year, you can't be in two places at once.
right.
Last year we were all focused on the YSL case. And I grew up in Boston. So everyone was like, AV, like they were knocking like AV, cover this case. And I didn't realize that evidence was being collected in red solo cups. Like, I just couldn't
Yeah,
believe that
yeah.
law enforcement officers did
I
that. And then
know.
it's
I
like
know.
a stop and shop bag. This is the equivalent of Publix in the South. But
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. I went to school in New Hampshire, and by the way, AV,
Oh,
I would have never. I went to law school in New Hampshire. I would have
nice.
never picked you as someone from Boston. You're very kind and nice. I don't know what happened to you. Okay, Bostonians, bring the hate because you do it that way anyway by default.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, sometimes the accent comes out like, park the car in the Harvard yard. They're bagging and tagging evidence. Like, I hide it very well. But I
It's
went
not
to
the
law.
accent; it's the
Yeah.
attitude you don't have.
Yes,
So
exactly. Well, I think that being in the South definitely helped
did it mellow
soften the
you?
edge of it. However, I did go to a Hawks game last year, and
Okay.
it was the Celtics versus the Hawks.
Okay.
I did wear
You,
I did wear the jersey, and the Hawks fans did not like it.
really?
Yeah, everybody was
Wow.
kind of friendly. Like we had floor seats, but like I think that we had a win. Like, they were doing really well,
Yeah.
and then the Hawks came and won. So it was like last minute, but it was a thrilling game.
Yeah. By the way, I see something in the chat. I know all you people from Mass aren't horrible. I just kind of give you guys a hard time. You know, to me,
Yeah.
here's what Boston is all about, real quick, as an
Hmm.
aside.
Yeah.
This to me totally is everything I ever need to know about Boston. So I was in school in New Hampshire, so I had New
Yeah.
Hampshire tags. And
Yeah.
I would go down to Boston occasionally because you got to do
Hmm.
something. And it was
Hmm.
during the big dig. So it's just a
Oh,
giant
wow.
mess. Everything is torn up. And I
Yep.
remember just the perfect Boston moment was I pulled over to ask someone for directions,
Hmm.
and they scolded me in their unique Boston accent, which I cannot reproduce.
What do
And
you
they're
know?
like,
Well, do you know where you're going?
if you don't know where you're going, you got no business driving in the city. Go back to New Hampshire. And that's what Boston is all about.
Yeah, yeah. I
You're
mean,
always straight
not
with
the
people.
friendliest. I've gotten it before. Like it's always the road rage. I believe they refer to it as being a mass hole. But it's
Mm,
like I've heard it before
yeah,
myself.
yeah,
Like I think I had my phone on Bluetooth, but I was trying to answer a call in traffic,
yeah.
like dead stop traffic. Some guy pulled up next to me, was just like, "Get off the phone." I was like, "You're yelling at a female like this?"
There you go. There you go. But anyway, I want to tell you about. So
Yes.
obviously, I was tied up last year and could not follow Karen Reed.
Right.
So
Same.
I'm like, what's the Karen Reed thing about? Do I want to know about it? I don't know. But
Mhm.
once you touch a little bit of it, it is such a mess
It's so
that
bad.
it's fascinating, and it's hard to not dive deeper and deeper into it. So yeah,
Mhm.
I got sucked in by that motion
Yeah.
to breach the attorney-client privilege.
Oh my goodness. Every attorney up here would have rioted if she granted it.
Well, you know what? Well, okay, so here's what I thought about it.
Mhm.
I thought that the prosecutor was right. I thought that
Ah.
legally, she had waived some degree of attorney-client privilege
Mhm.
through the statements that she had made, right?
Yep.
And but I thought it was still kind of a dick move on the part of the prosecutor to try to, now look, in civil, if it was a civil case, I would be a dick. I would try to waive the privilege. But I think in a criminal case, in that circumstance, I would not try to get into that. And then just dealing with it would be a whole giant side trial and mess. Because you'd have to basically appoint a special master to go in and look at all the communication. You'd have to have a hearing on the scope of the waiver, right? And then you'd have to go through everything. It would just been just a disaster. So, and again, that led me to my next topic, which was Karen Reed, shut up.
Yes. So that's the thing. So she did a documentary. Before I get into that, guys, just a quick reminder. I do see some super chats and people that have joined. I'm going to read those off at the end. And then after the stream ends, I'm going to introduce you to another channel. There's some friends of mine, John and Sam, that I want to tell you guys about. They have a channel called OK Storytime, and they talk about stories kind of like this. So I cannot wait to tell you guys about that. But they tell stories about relationships and things of the like, and their streams are super fun. I'll put a link in the chat in a second and redirect you guys to their stream after. But coming back to this, wow, where do we start with Karen? I mean, with the attorney-client privilege thing, that's one thing. But she did have a documentary that she did. And there was a Vanity Fair article that was super popular. This documentary is through ID, the ID network. And it is 5 episodes. It just dropped 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So here's the thing about that motion, Doug. In the motion, he mentioned that in a documentary, she said, like, she's basically recounting what she said to her criminal defense attorney. That's where this is coming from.
I know. I saw that. I saw that.
It's crazy.
And by the way, the other reason that I thought the prosecutor didn't need to do this move, you can just put on her statements from that documentary. You don't need to go through this issue of breaching privilege, getting all this other stuff. You know, you can get the evidence you want without doing that. Or you can, you know, try to subpoena the tapes, or you can just, there's all kinds of ways you can authenticate that and put it on without going to this trouble of trying to breach the attorney-client privilege, which is sacrosanct, even though he screwed it all up.
That word brings me back to one chief judge.
Yes, sacrosanct.
Every time I hear the word sacrosanct, that is just what it reminds me of.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. But it's sacred. It's one of those things where if I have a discussion with my client, like, those are privileged communications.
They
but
are.
At the same time, if she's saying that she said it, I mean,
and look,
is it a waiver?
You know what the rule is, or the law is. If you, the client, don't treat it as privileged, don't treat it as sacred, then generally the court will not. So again, I thought the prosecutor was right, but I think the judge did the absolute correct thing in denying that motion. Yeah,
because one of the attorneys, Alessi, like, they had a hearing on it sometime last week, and he's super sharp. He reminds me of Max in a lot of ways, with like just how quick and efficient they are in their arguments. But he had started to make his argument. The judge stopped him and says, no, I don't need to hear the rest of this. And she made the ruling from the bench.
Yeah.
Oddly, she never does that. I was like, oh my gosh, she barely does it. So the fact that she ruled from the bench was interesting. But the other strange thing about this case, in just looking at some YSL contours, one of my favorite moments, Doug, I think it was your objection. I had like 4,000 or 5,000 people watching. And I taught them, brought up the federal rules of evidence. I taught them what 403 meant. And I think chat typed in 403 as you were standing to object. And they were like, yeah, Doug's right. And they were like parsing apart the rule. And that was like, I was like a proud chat mom. I said,
there
wow, you guys have learned something.
I know. But
it's
you know,
amazing.
the only issue with the 403 issue in YSL, as far as the educational component of it is that 403 objections on waste of time are exceedingly, in reality, in a real trial, are exceedingly rare.
Yes.
And they are rarely, if ever, sustained.
Right.
And the only reason in that case that string of 403 objections happened and were sustained is that we had gone up for a bench conference earlier. And I don't even remember what the line of questioning was, but I had objected to the whole line.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it just takes too long.
Yeah.
To get out.
Miss Love fought me on it.
Yeah.
And Judge
We
Whitaker
recall.
Judge Whitaker just said on the bench, and none of this was picked up on camera, but Judge Whitaker just said from the bench, well, I guess we're just going to have to do it piece by piece. So basically inviting me to object. And that's why you had like 27 or 28, whatever the number was.
We had an objection
403
counter.
Objections. And
this was born. We have the wrap it up box. Like, this is from one of those days. We were with you.
Well, I can guarantee you in YSL2 that Adam Abate and Simone Hilton will be far more efficient and do a far better job of prosecuting this case than you saw in YSL1. And that is in many ways to the detriment of the defense.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the reason why I bring it up is because Judge Cannoni in the Karen Reed case, for some reason, I believe Judge Glanville, he would, whenever anyone objected, he would say basis, the basis for your objection, which is pretty standard. Judge Cannoni does not require that.
I heard, well, tell me if I'm wrong. I heard that not only does she not require it, she doesn't want to hear it. Is that correct?
Yes. So that's what it makes watching it so troublesome. Like, I've watched pieces of the first trial because there's just not enough time to do all 31 days. But I've watched like really important witness testimony and I'm hearing these objections, but I'm not hearing the basis. And she's just like, I'll allow it or I'll let him have it. And it's like, what are you letting him have? You know?
And there's I have a few comments about that. And I did read about that or hear about it. And of course I'm stunned by it. And I don't know if that's a normal Massachusetts thing or if that's a Cannoni thing.
I think it's a Cannoni thing.
Okay. And I don't get it for a number of reasons. One, the record isn't going to be well developed as to what the objection is for, her basis for ruling against you. So you've got a terrible record for appellate issues. The other thing is, I mean, I don't mean to recite my resume like a lot of lawyers do, but I've been doing this almost 30 years. And I have been in federal courts and some state courts from California to Texas to Florida, Massachusetts, not New York, but anyway, all over Virginia, everywhere.
Many states.
And the fact is, I've never heard of a rule like that. Most judges actually require you to state the basis of the objection. Some judges, I was in a trial 3 weeks ago with Judge Cox in Superior Court in Fulton County. He required us to cite the rule. He's like, what rule is it?
Exactly.
Now, you can't do a speaking objection, but what rule is it that's the basis of your objection? And then he'd pull out a little book and be like, okay, I see here you're objecting under whatever, 402, 401.
801,
whatever it is. So to have a judge that not only doesn't want to hear it, doesn't allow you to hear it, and then doesn't give the basis for a ruling is baffling to me and frustrating.
Yeah, because I get concerned because does it confuse the jury? Do they understand what's happening? Because they need to be paying attention, right? And, because some things are not allowed to be used in deliberation when it's time. So I don't know, because the first trial ended up in a mistrial. And I wonder if there were just small mechanical courtroom things that contributed to it. So I get concerned about that sometimes because just watching, there were moments where the prosecutor would stand. It reminded me of someone we know would stand and not state their objection. But because they were standing, the judge already knows or anticipates what the objection is going to be. And then instead of saying overruled, she seems to not say it. She'll go to the witness themselves and ask the question in a different way. So kind of aiding the state,
Yeah, and I can't remember, because I have a terrible memory, whether it was Judge Whitaker or Judge Glanville. I want to say it was Judge Whitaker the first month or two she was on the case, would kind of guide the litigants, although I believe it was mostly the prosecutor, where they would state an objection, give the rule basis for it, and then the judge would say, I won't object on that basis. Almost say, okay, give me another basis.
Oh
There's
yeah,
another
helping.
one.
Yeah.
There's another one. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you
Yep.
keep giving me numbers, you might eventually hit it. And I can't remember if that was Judge Whitaker or Judge Glanville. I want to say it was Whitaker until she caught on to the state.
It feels like that's how she would kind of guide them in, and you know, that I feel is a little bit different, you know, from what we're seeing here. Because in this case, it's like you're not even giving the prosecutor the opportunity to correctly state what's going on.
No,
you know.
And the other thing about Judge Cannone, just again, I am not super familiar with Karen Reed 1, but just what I've been watching since I picked up on it in the last few weeks, she does not, I know people are going to bash me now. I know people think she's biased. I have not really seen bias in the last few weeks. I'm not saying what happened at Karen Reed 1. I don't know, but her rulings so far seem to be pretty sound. Let's see.
Yeah, we will. And that's the other thing that I try to like tell the audience is like, give us some grace. We're all catching up, but it's like, as I'm starting to see the shenanigans play out, the witnesses on the stand, all the shoddy evidence. So, you know, I was done with the evidence collection, and that was my first week where I was just like mind blown. But then all the, like, you had clear people that were lying on the stand, like 100%, no doubt in my mind, not being truthful. Yeah. And, you know, the other thing with the judge is it gets frustrating as an attorney when you're trying to explore something on cross-examination. I'm sure you can weigh in on this. And because the judge is not giving you an opportunity to complete the string of questions, you can't get out what you need to get out.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to be watching starting with opening to see how she does in this next trial.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't really understand about the Karen Reed case, I don't understand. Okay, let me give you my overall about the Karen Reed case.
Yes. I love it.
I think I have no idea whether she did it or not. I personally do not care whether she did it or not. Here's what I care about. Can the state prove that she did it beyond a reasonable doubt? And from what I have seen so far, and beginning to like backfill my knowledge, this investigation was so shoddy, and there are so many issues with this investigation. I don't possibly see how a jury can convict Karen Reed of count 1 of malice murder beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm stunned that they're bringing that. This seems like at best an involuntary manslaughter case.
Right. And that's what the investigation originally shaped up to be. And then it went up to murder too.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me given the crappy investigation and all of the problems. So if I'm the defense attorney, now these guys have far more experience than me as a criminal defense attorney. But if I'm the defense attorney, I'm just poking at reasonable doubt the whole time is what I'm doing. I don't believe I need to weave this story about a police conspiracy and all these other people did it, because my concern is, in that case, you're putting the jury in the position of which story do I believe? Do I believe the story the prosecution is telling, or do I believe the police conspiracy story? And that's more burden than a defendant needs to carry. Yeah. So I would do more of this rule out theory that's going around. I don't know if you've read this book that's sweeping criminal defense attorneys on the rule out theory. But I would be going around and be like, you can't rule this out. You can't rule that out. As long as you can't rule these things out, then you have reasonable doubt.
I like that. Because it's like, it's one of those things where leaning into reasonable doubt is one thing, but then you go into this third party culprit theory. And that's where, that did come up in the first trial. And it certainly did come up moving forward to the second. Because there are 3 individuals where what they said on the stand just did not make sense. 2 of which the homeowner where the body was found, also a police officer, never came outside. They came to the scene and they were not questioned immediately. So that was also suspicious, but that is one of the third party culprits. Destroyed his phone. The other one,
who
same
does
thing. That? Yeah. The second one destroyed his phone at a military base. The ATF agent, And, it is a plausible theory, but to your point, I think that they could have weaved together reasonable doubt a little bit better than leaning into the third party culprit. And then there's also a young man, Colin. I watched the testimony yesterday, and it was pretty intense, to say the very least. But the judge ruled that the young man cannot be connected to the third party culprit thing because the victim, John O'Keefe, had issues with this young man, and there are photos of hurt scrapes on his knuckles. Reminds me of ASAP Rocky. But he mentions that he received those injuries by falling forward. He slipped on ice, and this coming from New Hampshire, slipping on ice and landing on his knuckles.
That's not how we land when we slip on ice up north, by the way.
Exactly. That's
no.
It was strange. So to think about that, and John O'Keefe apparently owned a home, and Colin would go to the high school and cut through his lawn. As a homeowner, he has the right to tell him to stop. And this young man would throw, beer cans on his lawn. And so it looked as if there was a fight that took place. But again, no eyewitnesses, no strong evidence. And it appears, in my opinion, it appears to be a frame job. And
I read Judge Canoni's opinion on the three third-party culprit that they wanted to put forward. And again, to me, it seemed like she followed the Massachusetts law in her ruling on that. So I don't necessarily agree with the law where you limit the defense and the defenses that they can use at trial, but that's apparently the law in Massachusetts. So she seemed to be following that. You saw Karen Reed has asked the Supreme Court to stay her trial pending their decision on the writ of mandamus. I don't expect the Supreme Court to grant that. Do you?
No, no, we're running out of time. And they announced it today. Opening arguments are starting. We're getting ready. So, just thinking of trial predictions, it's not often that people get a second bite at the apple. To your point, I think that the defense attorneys had some time to really strategize and learn from the first time. So that is a benefit. Now we have a second prosecutor leading this. So he's leading the charge. So we'll see how he does. But a few other attorneys have come on. And I think the big theme that everyone is anticipating is impeachment and opportunities for impeachment, because I think all these witnesses, there's something like over 105 witnesses. Some of them are repeats. So
and on those repeats, you've got all the prior testimony. YSL2 is going to be the same way. They're going to have the testimony. If they bring forth some of these same witnesses, they're going to have the testimony from the previous trial. So you have lots of impeachment opportunity. But still, I go back to my point that I don't know that either side really learned a lot from the first trial. Certainly the state didn't, because they have all of that information from the jurors in the first trial. Why even bring this malice murder count again? I don't get it, because they're going to have to strain their, we talked about credibility earlier. To me, I don't care if it's criminal or civil, the one precious resource that all attorneys have before a judge and a jury is their credibility. And you should spend that lightly, very lightly. You should be very careful with it. And the prosecution has put themselves in a bind where they're going to have to stretch their credibility on this malice murder charge they're trying to prove. If they would have just kept it as an involuntary manslaughter, I think they would have a much greater chance of getting a conviction. But they're going to have to go out on such a limb to try to get these other counts that really have no business being in there. They've done themselves a disservice.
Yes, absolutely. And just looking at some of the numbers from yesterday, I think that they were looking at 45 jurors, and a majority, I would say 95%, had heard about the first trial, and 27 out of the 45 already formed an opinion. So it's it's so unique to be able to see a second round at this, and some of the challenges that come within jury selection. If they formed an opinion, Are we going to have a fair and unbiased jury box?
Well, they're allowed to have, I mean, as long as they can have an opinion going in, as long as they can tell the court that they can still be fair and unbiased and have their ruling based solely on what they hear in court. I mean, did you see the 9 questions that the jurors are asked?
Yes, especially the law enforcement piece. You know,
those are pretty standard questions. I thought the process that they're using is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I don't like that they basically go up on a sidebar with each particular juror in order because courts are supposed to be open. So the mass system of basically picking the jurors almost in secret, I'm uncomfortable with. But that's their process. So
Right. Very strange process. Any trial predictions? And I know you're just catching up, but anything off the top of the head that comes to mind when it comes to this case?
I am good at trial predictions. Okay, I guess based on the evidence that I've seen and read about, either not guilty all the way across or guilty on involuntary manslaughter. Is that still count too in the new case?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so maybe that. I don't believe that is a compromise. I believe the problem is all these witnesses have terrible credibility.
Yes.
So even
that's exactly it.
I mean, even that is a stretch. So that's why I'm thinking, if the jury really sticks to guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, you may get not guilties across the board. And again, I'm not, for all the anti-Karen Reed people, I'm not saying she didn't do it. I'm just saying I don't think the state can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
I agree with you on that part because that's their job at the end of the day. They have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And there's just so much doubt here. Yeah. And to your point with the witnesses, you have Trooper Proctor, one of the lead investigator in the case, lost his job. Like dishonorably discharged. I like to just say fired. But,
I mean, he was fired.
Yeah, fired. Like, some of the egregious things he was saying. And as I've been getting into the documentary, I'm finding body cam footage of some of the comments he was making as she was being arrested. Like, she was being arrested. She's in her pajamas with, not to get like crude or anything. She had like no undergarments. And they're like, she's like, can I just get dressed? And, like, I don't want this on the news in this way. And he's just like, you hear him talking to another officer on the body cam footage. And he's just like, you see how crazy she is? She's more worried about how she looks on TV.
Yeah.
So it's not helping his reputation at all.
No, I mean, I think and again, I don't follow a lot of criminal cases. So the only thing that springs to mind for me is like Mark Furman from back in the old days.
A lot of people have been saying that actually.
Yeah.
a ton.
I mean, he's obviously, I don't think he's a racist Nazi piece of crap like Mark Furman, but just a terrible law enforcement officer who's just I don't want to say single-handedly, he's had a lot of help, but has played a major part in wrecking this case. I mean, if this would have been investigated properly, you could have a completely different outcome than they're likely to get in the second trial.
Exactly. And just, I don't see this in other places, certainly not Georgia, but like someone investigating a crime on a group chat with friends that they grew up with and talking about the case. I was done with that too. I was just like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? And, really like this, I like to tell people that this case is important to look at because of that. This can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter like color, race, gender. In this case, we have a female defendant, but it's one of those things where this can happen to anyone.
To absolutely anyone. And that's what I try to bring up with people. I mean, everyone deserves to have their constitutional rights protected. Right. Everyone deserves that if they're charged with a crime, that law enforcement has done a proper job of investigation. And to the extent they haven't, to have a criminal defense attorney point that out. And it doesn't matter whether you like or hate Karen, even if you hate Karen Reed, even if you're sure that she did this, you should want a proper constitutional outcome that respects her rights, because one day it may be a family member, one day it could be you that is wrongly accused of a crime. So those protections are critical.
They totally are. Oh my goodness, this has been such a fun blast from the past. I'm going to do this chat. I have a ton of super chats to read. If you guys have probably we'll take 2 questions. If you guys have questions for Doug, put a Q in the chat, and then I will read off your question, and then we'll go from there. But Doug, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, I've
And it's
enjoyed it.
always
Thank
great
you.
to like talk trials and, and it's kind of relaxing too, because we were all on edge with YSL and we were all busy. I know you guys were getting lack of sleep, the defendants were, and it was a lot. So it is interesting to be able to kind of come back at this slowly, but I know it's going to be long, probably 6 to 8 weeks, a little bit lighter compared to YSL, but definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So
right.
here's what we'll do. Doug, where can people find you if they're local in the Atlanta area? Tell us a little bit more about your firm website and where they can find you.
You can find me at the website is weinsteinlaw.us, and you can find my email, my work phone number there. You're welcome to contact me. I am more than happy. I'm pretty much staying mostly in the greater Atlanta area, but having said that, I've got a month-long trial in Savannah, outside Savannah. I've got a week-long trial at the Florida-Georgia border. So I will venture out, but I'm mostly around the Atlanta area. So hopefully no one will need any help. But if you know someone that needs help, I'm happy to help them out. And I would love to do that. I'm just so people know, I'm keeping my practice a little smaller so that I can devote more time to each individual client. So I'm not taking on everyone that contacts me. So don't be offended if maybe I don't work on your case, but that's just because I'm trying to keep my workload a little more manageable.
Exactly. And thank you, Ghost. She's dropping the link to your website now. And then where can people find you on social? I mean, I think we've got the Twitter covered, but you're on Twitter, TikTok too.
I'm on
Is
TikTok.
That right?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. But you know why I'm on TikTok? I'm on TikTok solely because of you, AV.
Oh my goodness.
You're the one that blew me up on TikTok. So after you got me so many followers, my daughter Sabrina said, Dad, you have all these followers. You need to start doing TikTok. So
there we go.
That is why I'm on TikTok. And I love the interactivity of TikTok Live. So I'm going to try to be on there a little more regularly instead of just randomly. I'm just trying to find the right time. But yes, there's my TikTok. So
perfect.
Come on there and I will chat with anybody about almost anything. And I think people know I pretty much speak my mind.
Yes, of course. All right, Doug. Well, I'm going to hang back with chat, but thank you so much for your time today. This is super fun and we so appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. And you guys have a great evening.
Thanks, Doug. Bye. Take care.
Sure.
All right, guys, we did another one. We got another one down. I'm really excited to be able to get different perspectives. We have a few days left to trial day, 6. And there's still plenty of work to do. There's still a lot for us to look at. Some motions are still outstanding. I have other guests to come on for you. I just followed up with Melanie. I'm hoping to hear back from her within the next day or so. But Andrea Burkhart has confirmed we're going to do that on Sunday. So there are a ton of legal experts that are coming in to weigh in on this. And again, like I always get like different nuggets of information from each of them. So it's always great to have them on. I have a few more announcements for you guys, but why don't we go in, because Miss Zoe is your stream sponsor again. I saw this and I was so excited when it came in, but whenever I have a guest on, I like to save the supers for the end. But Zoe, thank you so much for the $100 super chat. If you guys can type Zoe in the chat, that would be fantastic. She says, remember to like the video, y'all. And AV, can you tell TLA we miss him too? I will. I was just, he texted me yesterday, actually. He is doing well. He's just taking some time to focus on some health related things. So he will be back soon, but I will certainly pass along the message, Zoe. TLA is such a great guy. You know, he's been going through some challenges with health in the last year, but it's great to see him in good spirits. He's so passionate about YouTube and helping people out to get really out there and focus on YouTube. You know, one of my mentors, and really happy to have worked with him over the last 2.5 years, but I'm over here working on my channel now, you know, build it as you fly it. So that has been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for showing Zoe the love, because she also gifted you 50 AV membership. Zoe, thank you so much. She is your stream sponsor, guys. You know, I often say it like, you know, this work is really important to me. And you know, kind of going into the Karen Reed case, I was talking to a friend this morning, and he had just really like kind of shifted my focus. He said something along the lines of like, Avi, you're like one of the only female voices that are online covering this case. And think about how important it is for Karen and other female defendants that go through these things and their stories are left untold. You know, so the fact that I'm doing this work for a specific purpose, it just kind of helps fuel that that passion and to keep going, and the encouragement to keep going. So Zoe, thank you for gifting the memberships and being so generous today with chat. She is your stream sponsor, guys, at $250. Like, that is extremely generous. So Zoe, thank you again. And you know, I said it last time. I was like, people don't walk up to you in Target and they're like, here's $100. So I don't take this generosity lightly. It really does mean the world. And it helps me and my team continue to make good content. So thank you so much, Zoe. I really appreciate you. Coming to the top, Nature Self-Study became a YouTube member. Welcome to the team. We are here and we're doing our thing. Thank you so much. Critical Conversations HR. It's good to see you again with the 5. Says Keon Walker, brutally beaten by officers in Attica Correctional Facility, then sentenced to 300 days in solitary. Let's get him out. Thank you for shining a light on that one, Critical Conversations HR. I did hear about this one in passing, but you know, with all the things that are going on, it's so hard to put your focus in all these different places. Somebody emailed me today about Lori Vallow. Did y'all see what's going on with that one? But I am just all in on Karen Reed right now. We have a few days to catch up on some testimony, and I'm still doing a body in the snow. If you have not seen the episode that I released last night, they're going to be like quick little 15, 20-minute videos, but I'm just going to give you my take on all of them. So we're going to do episode 2. I have to film that tonight, actually. Hopefully we can get it out for you guys tomorrow morning. But yeah, we're going to power through that before Tuesday. So thank you so much, Critical Conversations HR. Trucker T, Brooklyn with the 10 says, I appreciate how you and Weinstein care about your clients. 10 toes down. I'll call you if I ever have issues. Money well spent. Thank you so much for saying that, Trucker T. And that's the thing. Attorneys that are really dedicated to their craft, you will see that. Like, they actually are not just looking at a client as a number. We see that in Karen Reed's case. You know, Alessi recently joined the team, but Alan Jackson, like, he's so passionate about defending Karen. Liza Little, passionate, flying all the way over from California to defend Karen. And of course, Mr. Unetti's been there day one. They're really 10 toes down with defending her. And you know, what a great dream team she has. It's expensive, but she's got a really solid team. So thank you so much, Trucker T, Brooklyn. He also dropped 10 memberships. We're a great bunch over here. We really try to like collaborate and get all this stuff going. And if you are getting a membership, guys, it's going to come with its perks. I have a poll for you tomorrow. The Karen Reed store is going up tonight. You see how busy I am? But I need to launch our collection. The designs are done. I just need to post them on the website tonight. So we're launching our Karen Reed collection. And as a thank you to all the members, I'm going to give you guys 25% off. Okay. I'm going to give you guys 25% off because if you order it now, your t-shirt will be here in time for trial day next week. So we will do that. Thank you so much, Trucker T. Of course, we caught Zoe's 50 memberships and then the $100 super chat here. Shout out to Priscilla. Priscilla hits me. She has been with me for 6 months. Priscilla says, AV, thank you for bringing Doug to us. Yes, you know, Doug is special to me as a creator because he was the first large interview I ever had on this channel, like at all. Ashley and Doug last year, and you know, like without them, and you know, Max Shard came on, Nicole Westmoreland came on. All of those YSL attorneys did come on, and I really wanted to just not have like a funny conversation, but more along the lines of like making sure that you guys learned something from these legal minds, right? It's really important to me. So Doug, this is his 3rd appearance on my channel. He doesn't have to do that. And the fact that he's coming to give you guys some intel and to help me in my effort in sharing legal ed with y'all, it's just fantastic. So thank you so much, Priscilla. Kansas Sofa Juror with the 5. Kansas says, Miss AV, dishonorable discharge is more intense than fire. Is it? Okay, like we're going to choose whatever y'all want. But listen, whatever works, he ain't there anymore. That's what matters. She says, thank you for getting involved in this case. Of course, this is what I'm here for. I'm always here for you guys. So I appreciate you, Kansas Sofa Juror. Coming to Miss Zoe again, guys. If y'all don't type Zoe in the chat, like look at her. 50, another 50. She has donated $300 to this stream today. Zoe, thank you. Like seriously, thank you. I cannot thank you enough. This is extremely generous. And you're really helping this channel, grow to its full potential. And you've been around, you've been coming to the streams, you've been participating in chat. I just really appreciate you right now. And she's saying, you're the only female that I still watch from when Kevin would recommend RIP KS. Zoe! It just gave me chills. You want to know why? She's talking about Kevin Samuels, guys. Like before I became a content creator, he and I were actually pretty close. I just spoke to his mother last night. Miss Samuels called me and I spoke to his best friend this morning. So I talked to Jeff. So it's what a coincidence that that's what your super chat said. But yeah, I talk to Kevin's family pretty often and stay in touch with them. But yes, it's almost 3 years past his passing, and there might be a documentary coming soon. But if you guys are ever interested in Kevin's content, what a strong brother in the community. He went too early. He's at the peak of his career. But, so many great lessons about relationships coming from Kevin's world and orbit. Sometimes it's pretty intense. Like we know, sometimes Kevin was intense. But I think at the end of the day, he really, really wanted people to come together, families, and building strong families and keeping those families together. So Zoe hit me with another 20. Zoe, wow. I'm so overwhelmed with this generosity. She is now at 320 as your stream sponsor, guys. And she says, I love Jeff. And he's such a sweetheart. His last name is Samuels. I hear you guys saying that. He has about 1.8 million on YouTube. But wow, what a great way to stop to close out today's stream. But Zoe, thank you. I mean, $320 is extremely generous, and it just helps me continue this work and power it for you guys. So a couple things before we jump off. I think I gave you guys all the updates. Merch store is going up tonight. Substack, you'll see some updates on that. Andrea is coming on Sunday, and we're continuing our episodes on A Body in the Snow. So all of that is coming, but I appreciate all of you guys. You're incredibly sweet. Zoe being your stream sponsor is amazing. I want to thank everybody that contributed to the stream. Look at Darlene. She says, I was given a membership. Thank you. Darlene, it either came from one of 3 people. It likely came from Zoe, but it also could have come from Trucker T. And it also, I think it was just you guys today. But almost every stream that we do, our community is just amazing. We continue to gift out memberships, and memberships come with its perks. So by your Chatterhood family member here, them contributing to doing that, it just means so much. Well, listen, guys, I am going to get back to work for the other content for the night. If you have not seen yesterday's episode of The Body in the Snow, go check it out right now. I will link it here. And again, I did want to tell you about my friends at OK Storytime. Now, if you guys are in for funny stories, OK Storytime is like a new podcast I've been completely obsessed with. I have 2 friends there, John and Sam. They are so funny. They go live twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think they're live right now. And just as a favor to them, I'm going to send you guys all over there so you can check out their content. They are super funny, and the stories are interesting. I think they're doing sometimes people call in for advice. So they give relationship advice. I'm going to drop the link to their channel here. in the chat, but it's going to automatically take you there. Check out some of their content too. Let's spread the love. I like, helping creators grow. So anywho, I am going to jump off of here, get all this stuff done, and we will be back very soon. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, and tell them AV sent you. Tell them I sent you. All right, y'all. Have a good one. See you soon. Bye.